When I was 14, I received a book, and that book was on Zen Buddhism, and it taught me to meditate, which I found very valuable, and I wish I was still practicing that. In fact, maybe I will resume. But the main thing I remember from this book was this riddle that just like was a thorn in my side most of my life, which, you know, it's ongoing. But from 14 to like 40, this riddle, I don't even know if it's a riddle. It's a story that for enlightenment. So you know, there's a story about the forest pond, and it says in this Zen Buddhism book 20 something years ago that I was reading, that if you get the answer to this forest pond question, then you've attained the next level of enlightenment, and it will bring a great peace, and that the answer to the forest pond question applies to everything, not just the forest pond. It's like, wow. And so what is so basically what it was a story about some fish in a forest pond, and like generations go by and they don't give you enough information to count the fish. There's like, it starts off with a few fish. It's like very vague. There's some fish in the forest pond, and then, you know, they have some children, some die, generations and seasons go by, and then how many fish in the forest pond? I swear to God, I'm giving you the story. It's like I'm sorry, what do you mean, like a number? But you can't ask the book that. It just says that when you get the answer. So it's like, I sat there and I'm like, my 14-year-old self, after reading it, and I just like puzzling over this, and I finally decide, well, that there's not even close to any information to get a number. So if it's a number they're after, that you can't. So they can't be after a number because there's just not enough information. And I'm like, aha, that must be it. There's not enough information. My younger self told myself that this was the answer, that life is that way, and that was the enlightenment to receive. It's impossible for us to know because we were intentionally withheld the information which would allow us to calculate the exact current number. So, that must be applied to, and that can be applied to our understanding of the universe to the extent that it means not to try to calculate the exact nature of God or the different religions because it's unknowable. Enlightenment is in knowing you cannot know. I told myself this like 2 decades ago, and I was satisfied at first. I told the story to a bunch of different people, Forest Pond Riddle, and then my answer, and they all agreed that my answer was surely the correct one. What else could it be? And how intuitive I was for coming up with it on my own. And, so I would take that praise and okay, yeah, it's got to be that, huh? And the months passed, and I kept questioning it. I thought, that's a cop-out. It's a cop-out answer. It's, but, what's the real answer? And, and it might be correct to a degree or something, but I didn't feel enlightened, and I contemplated it over the years. It just kept kind of coming back to me, and I was always unsatisfied with the answers. Like, but what else could it be? They don't give you enough information. So the only thing it can be is there's not enough information, and that's the answer. Life, there's some things unknowable. And so, but, it just didn't feel right. And I just, over the years, it kept coming back to me. Now, and so what I'm going to tell you here is that I came up with, it doesn't matter if it's the right answer as far as what the monk or whoever wrote that thing, it gave me what it said it was. So it's the right answer for me. Maybe somebody else come up with a different answer. And if I had heard the answer, so it took me over 20 years to come up with what I believe is the right answer, and I know is the right answer for me. But here's the trippy thing. If I had come up with this answer at 14, if it had hit me like it did when I was rototilling the backyard when it came to me, if it had came to me earlier, like that same day when the other thing, well, it's unknowable, cop-out answer came to me, I'm not sure that I'd even remember it to this day like I do. I think the fact that I didn't think I had a correct answer and it stuck in my head, and it took me 20-something years to come up with what I find a very satisfying answer, is the reason I came up with a satisfying answer. There was no answer in the book. And I've looked it up online. It's not online anywhere. I don't know if that was the only place it's ever been written down. Maybe it's a story that particular author came up with on his own. But there was no answer in the book, and there's no answer anywhere online. So, and I think some things in Buddhism are intentionally meant to just be, it's the journey that is of value, not just having an answer. You can't, you have to take the journey to get to the answer. And that's what I did for over 2 decades. And then when it came to me, it just came to me. And I know it's correct because of the way it made me feel. It changed my perspective of the world and made me calm, relaxed, and everything's okay. Everything will always be okay. Based on this simple forest pond thing that applies to everything. So, now, I'm going to say what I came up with because that's, I'd be getting a lot of pissed off. Maybe, would I? I don't know. What I should do is just leave it there and then wait 25 years and, hey, after 25 years, get back to me. Tell me if you came up with the answer. Or what? Maybe the answer I came up with is only for me. Maybe other people would come up with different answers that work for them and make that. But I will say what it is. And if you want to go on your own journey and not have, the answer I came up with, perhaps clouding your own, path, then I would say, shut this off and just, don't hear it. Cause I think if I'd heard this, it would have screwed me up. I wouldn't have, continued contemplating it, and I probably would have forgotten the whole thing because it wouldn't have had the same effect at 14 years old that it did at 40. So here's what hit me. Was that, and again, it had come back every few years, and I'd sit there and twist it in my head and just be unsatisfied and just leave it there, and then come back a few years later and still be unsatisfied, and it kept coming back, and then so I'm out there, I'm rototilling my girlfriend's backyard at the time. Come over, she had this awful weedy backyard, and I was rototilling it, and then I leveled it afterwards and planted sod and flowers, and it ended up really, really nice. And I put a fountain in the middle. Beautiful. So I was doing, what I was doing was in tune, with God, with nature, with, taking obviously God created, I believe in God. God created this planet, and He created it beautifully, with the different flowers and all the different things. And so, so by taking something that was not beautiful, this backyard, and clearing it out and making it beautiful, I was taking God's design and of beauty and applying it in this wasteland thing of trash and dried up weeds and flagpole. It was disaster. She turned it into like a trash dump, her own backyard. And so anyway, so as I'm doing this what I think was godly work, and I must have spent 1,000 hours, no joke, over the course of a year and a half on that backyard, and probably dropped about $3,000 on these cool plants and sod and ground covers and fountain and PVC pipe that I laid underground. It was a big project, man. And I'd never done anything like that before. And so it was rewarding though. It felt good. It's like, you know what? When I break up with girlfriends or they break up with me or whatever, sometimes they're like resentful. Like, I wish I'd never met you. I'm worse off now. And so when I was doing that, I'm like, well, I'm going to give this girlfriend, chances are all my relationships beforehand had eventually ended, right? We split up. I'm being a little, overly optimistic if I think that's not going to happen here too. The chances are it will probably go at some point similar to the other, 20 relationships I've had in my life. So I'm thinking to myself, that's probably what's going to happen. So I want to make sure this one can't say that, that I leave her something I can't take. Like, if I give her a ring or something, I can get mad at the end and give me back that ring, and she might give it back, and that way we're mad at each other, and I'm worse off. And I thought, you know what? I can't take this saw. Or if I wouldn't even try. Doesn't matter how bad terms we leave. I'm not going to try to pull up plants and make her backyard uglier. So I put like 1,000 man hours in there and a few $1,000 turned into a thing of beauty, knowing I couldn't take it. And so, and I think that was a godly thing that I was doing, not just the nature thing, but because of why I was doing it. And that's how it worked out. We did split up, and she had a beautiful backyard that hopefully she's kept up. I don't know. Anyway, I already had this vision in my head of how it was going to be. But at this point in time, I'm doing the manual labor of breaking up, taking off the rocks and all this trash. And she had some flagpoles with big cement bases in there because her previous boyfriend was a ham radio operator. He had a bunch of antennas back there. Oh, it was a mess. But I'd already cleared out all that at this point. And now I've got a rototiller and I'm breaking up, the ground and getting it ready, aerating it, because I'm going to start laying down the sod and stuff. And then I was leveling it, putting out posts and figuring out how to do it every little bit of a time because I'd never done anything like that. And it came out really nice. And so while I'm doing this rototilling, it hits me. The forest pond. How many fish are in the forest pond? The exact right amount. The exact amount they're supposed to be right now at this time and at that place in the forest pond. And when I thought that simple little thing, it's unknowable. It is knowable. How many fish? The exact right amount. Any more or any less wouldn't be perfect. Everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. Whether you believe in God, nature, whatever, it's the way it's supposed to be. Powers greater than ourselves have willed it to be this way at this time. And that's how it's supposed to be. And there's no need to fight. There's no value in fighting it. Just accepting everything as it is, as it's the perfect way to be. Now there's wars and there's all these things that we think are, negatives, but it could be there to teach somebody we don't know. We don't know the big picture. If I create some kind of, video game to train pilots or something, and, they have to sit there, and crash and die in a few, situations in order to learn what not to do. Well, if they think it's real while it's happening and they think they're about to die, but they don't really die, then what does that means that the designer created something to help them that at the time that they think they're dying, they don't think it's real helpful, but it is. So I don't know the big picture. I'm just like throwing some out there. I don't know if kids dying of leukemia in children's hospitals or, maybe they get reincarnated. I don't know. So I don't know that that's a bad thing. Maybe they learn a lot from that and that they value they get another life and they value, maybe, I don't know, is the whole thing. And so and that's what hit me at the time. It's like, so if how many fish in the forest pond, the exact right amount, that thought, and just applying to everything, how many rocks are in this ground that I'm rototilling? The exact right amount. The exact right amount that I have to pick out of that ground. That's how many God, nature wanted you to have to remove in order for you to get to a higher understanding or get your muscles, whatever. It's everything's fine. Everything has its reason, its place, and it's not knowable to us. We don't need to know the whole thing. So in a way, it does kind of mesh with my original thought. It's like, that's like an entry level answer, and then there's a higher level answer, but they kind of weave together. There's some things that are unknowable, and the exact right amount. But here's what we can know, is that everything's the exact right amount, even though we don't know the exact, situation or the reason for it. We don't know how many fish are in the forest pond, and we don't know the reason that kids die of leukemia at 7 years old. But that's okay, because everything's just how it's supposed to be, including the number of fish in that forest pond. And that's what I came to, and it gave me a peace that has stayed with me. And so I don't know what the original idea was. I couldn't find anything about that story anywhere. So, but I know that by keeping that in my head and coming back to it and finally coming to the perspective that I came to on that forest pond story was very valuable to me. And I don't know if it would have been if I just heard that answer from somebody else or come up with myself earlier. And so, I lay it out there though, for others, and I'd be interested to know, do you think that insight is valuable, or is this just something, my own little trip? Am I off on my own little thing that that's fine too. It doesn't really matter. Although, I'd like to think that is helpful to others too. Although I have this suspicion that part of the thing is coming up with it, on your own, having a realization rather than, being told by someone else, oh, I had this realization. So feedback, appreciated. If anybody ends up listening to this, probably could have made it a lot shorter. So yeah, interested in feedback on the first answer, the second perspective I came to, and whether or not you see it as a growth, or if I'm just off on my own trip, and whether you wish you would have just shut this off before I said that final thing, because maybe that like ruined it for you. Now that's stuck in your head, and you're not going to be able to come up to your own realization. So I just be interested in any comments on that. Thanks.